Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 268 for November 20th, 2022. I'm host TowerMaster99. Tonight, I have two gentlemen that I'm sure you're very familiar with. Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how are you?
Oh, I am well and glad to be here. Nice to have you back, Tao.
Thank you. Took a little break last week. And then we have Mr. Lee Hampton. Hamp, how's it going tonight? And also, a question for you. Is that a new microphone?
No, I've had this for a while. This is just a blue ice snowball. I just haven't typically broken it out for use on the podcast. But yeah, there have been a few changes that have made me maybe start incorporating it.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't remember seeing that before, so I just wanted to make sure. I was actually listening to last week's show, and I believe you're mixing stuff around or moving stuff in your studio there, different systems and such. So, but let's get started with tonight's show. Tonight, first, we're going to start off with our our main games that we've been playing this past week or so. DB, I am going to start with you. You got some retro collection, I'm assuming this looks like.
Yes, so this is a game that I've been keeping my eye on for a while. This is the Atari 50th Anniversary Collection. It's collected and put together by Digital Eclipse, which has done a number of things, but most recently did the great Cowabunga collection for the TMNT with all the additional things here. But it's a museum piece. It's really enjoyable as a documentary, as a piece of history. I mean, the games are what the games are. I haven't gone through all of the games. The way you can dive right into the games, but the way the software kind of lays it out for you is it takes you across a timeline through different eras of Atari. You know, kind of the pre-console, early arcade era, the launch of the VCS. Then you get into the 2652, 70 or 7200. Then you get up into the Lynx and the Jaguar in there. It is only Atari games, so there's not. Once you get past kind of like classic 2600, there's not a ton of like super familiar games that you remember from. There's not California games from the one that was packaged and bundled with the Lynx. You know, you're not getting Aliens and Predator because it's a different company. You get a nod to the Activision games back on the 2600, but this is really kind of classic Atari games. But they're all done really well. The emulation is strong. There's save states. You've got a number of different kind of display options with them and filters. As a game piece themselves, you're gonna, unless you have a lot of fond affection for certain things in the catalog, they are things that you would try a few times, kind of understand what they were trying to do, see what might have evolved from it. There's definitely some things that have, that take some of the classics of what Adventure was on the 2600 and then kind of adds a splash of Gauntlet in some of it, that you can see some progression. But a lot of what you're getting is you're getting scans, booklets, manual scans. You're getting high quality images of ads, magazine ads, different kind of posters, and then a lot of videos with creators. Not only kind of the original people around Atari, you get people, you get Tim Schafer is on there. You get a couple other people. You get Ernest Cline from Ready Player One talking about kind of the influence of the Atari and that era. And so it is a really nice piece of history. And for anybody who has appreciation for Atari or for video game history itself, it's well worth it. Right now, we're on Black Friday week, right? And at Best Buy, it's $30. It's $40 regularly. It's on every console. It would run perfectly fine on Switch, right? Like, you may not get high quality video, but it's one of those where it really is. it is worth the price of admission for the amount of history that you would get.
Nice. So I have a couple of questions. First, did you play any of the Atari Jaguar games yet?
I played one Jaguar game, like a little puzzle game.
Okay.
But no, I haven't played. There's a couple others on there that looking through the collection, I spent some time kind of, piecing through. It's not, I mean, there's some things that I remember, not a lot. I really don't. I remember the Jaguar sitting in a Toys R Us, but I don't necessarily remember like what games run. I have a lot more connection to the Lynx and the number of games there. But maybe that's just because I was at a certain age that I was devouring gaming magazines at that time, or that the Lynx was covered in gaming magazines a little more than the 64-bit Jaguar with the keyboard controller. So
I was just wondering if you had tried Evolution Dino Dudes, because I just like the title of that game. I never heard of that game. Well, I mean, a lot of these games I never heard of.
No, I played some caveman puzzle games, so maybe that, I don't think that's it.
Okay.
So no. Okay, now I'll have to try Evolution Dino Dudes. Yes.
Yeah, Evolution Dino Dudes, yeah. And then you kind of mentioned how there's like different filters for when you're playing through it. But so have they done anything to the games themselves, like added like online multiplayer or anything like that, or done anything?
So the new pieces there's a handful of games that are that they did kind of reimaginings in. There's a Yar's Revenge reimagined and a Breakout reimagined. So there's a few new games on here that come under as like reinterpretations of some of these classics.
Okay. Interesting. Did you get it on sale then? You got it for the 30, or did you pay full price?
I got it on sale.
You did get it on sale. Okay.
Yep.
So I mean, do you think it's, well, I mean, you would probably play a little bit of it, but do you think it's worth the 30 or?
Oh yeah, I think it's worth the 30. I'd say it's worth the 40. Definitely. I mean, a $10 difference. It is worth that if you are somebody of our generation, somebody that has some recollection, like going through the history pieces and the articles about it and the interviews has been honestly more enjoying than most of the games. Like the games are fun as like a little memento of history, but the interviews, reading about them, kind of calling back to the nostalgia of it that's where the value is. Like if you don't have that nostalgia, it's a good collection. It's a great collection. Digital Eclipse put it together really well, but I would say mainly if you're coming at it from a historical perspective more than like, oh, I really wanted to play Missile Command again, and this is the way I'm going to do it. Like, there's probably other ways, and it's definitely, if it was a bare bones collection of only the games, yeah, I don't know that it would be. I mean, I haven't scratched enough of the remasters or the reimagined ones to know if there's enough there. But I mean, overall, depending on how I interpret one of our categories for our superlative show, this is definitely in my consideration. So, well worth it, But again, I'm talking to a group of old men, so yes.
Hey. So I was looking through the list here, and this is on. I tried to look on Atari, like the Atari site for this game, but I didn't see like full list there. I'm look real quick, but I'm looking on this other site, NintendoEverything.com, and they kind of list everything here. Now they have the Atari Lynx, but then they have one that's under Atari handheld. Is there another handheld, or was that just a one-off thing?
They document that the Lynx had a revision, right? You had the original Lynx that came out, and then a few years later, there was just a smaller form factor and a lower price. So technically, there are two different Lynx consoles represented there.
Okay.
But that's the only handheld that I've seen. But again, I haven't made it all the way through all the different timelines. I think there's like 5 different eras to go through.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Hamp, any questions or comments on the Atari collection?
No, not right now.
Okay. All right, let me jump into my game.
I apologize if any viewers out there saw it. So, so with this mic, there's no hardware mute on it, and so I've been using the Discord mute, which I don't like doing during the show. So I I remembered that there is an Elgato Stream Deck plugin for Discord chat now, which is new. So I hadn't installed it, so I tried to sneak it in there, but I think some of it popped up on the screen. So, but that's partially why I don't have any questions about the Atari collection.
All right, that's all right. There's always something with the technology going on in our show here. All right, let me jump into my 2 games that I've been playing this past week. First up, Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone 2 finally came out this past week. I believe it was on Thursday, I believe, if I remember correctly. And the first day, I only got a chance to play a couple of like 2 or 3 rounds, I think. There was some issue. I had pre-downloaded it the day before, but then of course there was a 0-day patch. So, and that took forever because I guess they're having issues with their download servers. So they were getting pounded probably. But that took a while, and I kind of just I was like, all right, I can't play, so I'll just let it run in the background. And then when I came back downstairs to turn off my PC for the night, of course it was almost done. So I was like, I'll play a game. And game turned into 3. So I just played a little bit, and then I was able to play a little bit more. Actually, yesterday afternoon, with one of my friends, and it seems to run. Just the gameplay itself kind of seems a little bit quicker, not as kind of cumbersome and slow as the first Warzone was. The graphics are a little. They're not as like. Warzone was kind of more that gritty kind of look, like it's like a war, like you're actually in a war. This seems to be not cartoony, but it's a little bit brighter. I think it looks like there's some kind of like not necessarily like a kind of like Borderlands cell shading, but
yeah, like the heavier outline of it.
Yeah, it's that heavier outline, so kind of just a little bit, pops a little bit more. But I mean, otherwise, it's a new map, and you got new operators. Not that really matters. I mean, they don't have like special powers or anything, but not like Apex Legends or anything. But there's new characters. There doesn't seem to be a storyline really, as far as I can tell. Not like in the first one. It's just there's like a little animation and stuff at the beginning, but I don't know if maybe just because they're just trying to get it off. They're trying to get the gameplay right. But there's no like storyline as far as I can tell. But I mean, it pretty much, like I said, other than being a little bit quicker, pretty much plays the same. There's new guns in the game. The loadouts they seem to drop after like I think the 3rd circle ring. I think it's like gas this time around. That's coming in. That's closing in. So I believe that's only after that 3rd ring. That's when they start dropping down. They've tweaked like the buy stations a little bit, where they kind of like section it off between. You can actually buy guns in there now. Before you couldn't do that. And then there's obviously like equipment like self revives, and you can call in a loadout and stuff like that. Gas masks and stuff like that. So they kind of separate, which is kind of nice because before you had kind of like flip through and kind of figure out what you're trying to do. And then of course you can call back a teammate if you're playing teams, if they happen to have got eliminated and didn't make it out of the gulag. Which actually, the Gulag has now revamped to now it's 2-on-2, and
because it was just 1-on-1 before, right?
Yeah, it was just 1-on-1, and you just had like the other spectators up in the crowds, which you still do, but yeah, now it's 2-on-2. But you can either do that 2-on-2 and just kill the other team off, and get back in. And then I think even if one of you guys dies, as long as someone survives, I think it brings both people back. Or you can work together, and there's like I forgot what they call it. It was like a jailer or like head jailer or something like that. So it's a guy that basically has the Juggernaut outfit, I believe, and he's like obviously super powerful. So you can kind of team up on just that one guy, and that's an NPC. Take him out, and then everybody comes back. So I've seen that happen a little bit, which I didn't realize until actually yesterday when I was playing. I knew that guy came out, but I just didn't realize like what he was. And then when I was playing with my friend, and he had a couple of the people that he had been playing with, and we were all playing, he had kind of explained like what that was. So it's kind of nice. Which then another new feature is the proximity chat now, which they also have. So So that kind of works in. So like when you get into that group, you can kind of talk to other people, say, hey, let's, do you want to do this or do you want to just take each other out? So assuming they're on mics, you can try to coordinate at least that. So it's kind of cool, kind of a different spin on it. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I was enjoying it. My friend didn't like it too much. He said there was like something off about it. Like he couldn't kind of put his finger on it, but he wasn't really feeling it too much. So I'm going to have to find another group to play with or somebody else to play with, because I don't think he's going to play anytime soon again. He said he might wait for like a couple patches or something and just he'll try to get back into it, but he just seemed like it was kind of off. Sound wise, it's kind of nice. It's not as loud and there's not as much noise as in the first game. So it's not like planes and like explosions and stuff going off like all the time. So you can actually hear stuff a little bit better now. So that's kind of nice. And it just gets like really quiet sometimes depending on the area you're at. So, but other than that, so DB, did you play a little bit or no?
No, I haven't yet. I got it downloaded. I haven't had a chance yet. Did you get a chance to try the DMZ mode?
No, I haven't tried that one yet. No, and from what I hear, I guess it's kind of like what's that other game? Something Tarkov something. I forgot what the name of that game was. It's something akin to that, which I'm not really sure what that game is all about.
Escape from Tarkov. So Escape from Tarkov is you like different people, like teams start on different sides of the map, and then each team's objective is to get to the opposite side of the map. And so at some point you're gonna encounter other teams trying to cross the map and wind up trying to take each other out. So I guess that's a little bit what DMZ is like.
Okay. Is there NPCs in that game then? Because I know there's NPCs in this one in that mode that you can fight or maybe even recruit or something.
I don't think there is in Tarkov. I know that there is in DMZ.
Yeah, that was one thing I had read and I heard somebody talking about at one point on another Discord. So, but no, I haven't had a chance to try that. I hear it's pretty good though, so it's supposed to be pretty good, but I've yet to try it. Any questions or comments on that one?
I did have questions. Actually, I have a couple alibis for DBQ, if you don't mind me looping back.
No, go ahead.
Just want to ask. So DBQ, that Atari 50th anniversary collection is $40 on Xbox and on Steam. There are 100 games there, but I mean, some of those games I think you could actually just play in the whatever it's called, like the digital museum thing or whatever. So, did you feel like there's enough value there in that? I mean, between like the documentaries and all the other stuff that goes along with it?
Yeah, I would say I feel like there is, because I have an interest in the history. So yes, I mean, to me, the fact that it's not a $50 game, that it's not a $60 game, that, that it's in that kind of $40 price point. And if it's already discounted now to $30 and it's only a week and a half old, I would think, that is probably a price range that it's going to hit. And then it's even more of an easy sell at $30 that it is, but yes, I would say even at full price at $40, I feel like the amount of things that Digital Eclipse has put into it, for people interested in gaming history, it's worth the price.
Yeah, being someone who just paid $50 for sticking Miles Morales on PC because they didn't offer it in any type of bundle with Amazing Spider-Man, it's good to hear that you find value in the $50. And the other thing I want to ask is the older games that were originally intended for CRT televisions. Did you feel like they've I don't know exactly. I know that there's some process that they need to do to make those like resolution accurate for 60:9 resolutions. And I mean, does it play in 60:9 or is it just 4:3 with black bars?
So you have options you can do. I've only played it in 4:3 in original resolution. You can do widescreen, you can do full screen. So it does it. I haven't looked at it enough and played with it in a couple of games to see what that looks like in terms of pixels and if it's stretching things or if it's just expanding things. I've kept it kind of within that 4:3 just for the nature of, and I kept the CTR kind of filter aspects of it on. There's a couple things there. So that piece of it feels, when you're looking at Atari games, there's not a whole lot of, you're only looking at pixels anyway. So there's not a lot of smoothing to go on, even with the original product.
Gotcha. And Tao, so Warzone 2.0 is here now. Warzone 1.0 is still around under the new nom de guerre, Warzone Caldera. I'm guessing and assuming that since your stuff doesn't carry over, you're still potentially going to play Caldera. What are your? I don't think we've had a chance to kind of talk and hear your kind of perspectives on how there's now this kind of hardline bifurcation between, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 1, and Warzone Caldera versus Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2.0.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because I didn't realize at first that they were gonna be two separate entities. Basically, they're two separate games right now. Technically, the first Warzone's going to be down for, I think they said 12 days, while they have Warzone 2, up and running. They get it, stable, or going as best they can, and then it's going to come back up. But yeah, I mean, it's hard because, and I don't know. I guess I kind of don't know the reasoning between that. Like, I don't know why they just didn't. They could have just put both maps maybe in this, the same, at least the same UI. So hey, I can switch between the two, but they're separate right now. At least for now, they're separate. It's two different.
So they're
games.
in two different launchers, or
yeah. So you just have the Modern Warfare, and then you have obviously Warzone 2, but then you have to go back to I guess it would be Vanguard or Black Ops, and then you could see the Caldera one there. So yeah, it's just it's kind of weird. Like I said, it's kind of weird. I don't know why they would have done that, but yeah, I will go back to Caldera, since I do have. At some point, I had I have 5,900 whatever called Call of Duty points or whatever they're called. And I'm not even sure how I got that. I think I just bought a bunch of points at some point. I probably did it from the Xbox rewards, and I just bought a bunch of points. So I want to have to use that at some. I'm going to want to use those at some point, and I'll have to go back. And I don't know if they're still going to be doing battle passes there, or if it's they'll just keep the store open. Maybe I'm not. I didn't really read up on that yet, or I don't know if you guys know anything about that side of it on Caldera. But I'll definitely have to be going. I'll probably go back to it, especially since like I said, me and my friend had been playing that before 2, and he doesn't really like 2 now. So we'll probably jump back into that one eventually once it does come back up. And I'll just play Warzone by myself, or if I know some other people in another Discord I'm on, they play it. So. But yeah, I don't. And the other interesting thing is too. I was kind of thinking about this the other day. I wonder if Blackout's still up and running, which was the original Battle Royale game. I'm assuming it is. I've never heard that it's gone down. Now I don't know how popular it is, and I don't know if if it's obviously it's probably not as popular as the first Warzone. But it's kind of interesting that if that's still around too. Not that, like I said, I think most of the people probably migrated to Warzone by now, but just to see how that rolls about. Any thoughts on the why they did that, or I don't know why they would even split it like that?
I mean, my guess is they're doing it. They did it because there are significant differences in the technology stack that makes up those games, and that there were prudent technical reasons for them to draw the line, right? And I mean, eventually what we're going to wind up seeing, I assume, is that Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 will kind of be the baseline as we skate into the future, and that eventually, right, those, it seems amazing to say now because they're only a year old in some cases, that those legacy games will eventually kind of go away, or kind of like you mentioned, will be recreated in the new baseline, right? It may not wind up being different than what we're seeing from SIE and Naughty Dog, right, with The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2, right, that The Last of Us remake is done on The Last of Us 2 tech, and now they're doing the multiplayer on The Last of Us 2 tech, right, and so now you'll have 3 games, right, in new versions that will all be on the same kind of technology stack and same engine, and the reason we do things like that in software development is because it makes the O&M tail easier, right? The total level of effort required to do maintenance, right? Fix bugs, things of that nature is always easier when the software components, what we normally refer to as CSCIs or computer software configuration items. It's easier when you're kind of all maintaining out of the same code base. It gets more difficult the more atomized you make that. So I assume that's why they did it. But I also won't put it past them that they just did it for money. So if people are paying into two different versions of Warzone, and there may have been a risk, right, in taking the Overwatch route and just retiring Warzone 1, right, and trying to force everybody over to Warzone 2.0. There may have been consideration that, they would have lost players for people who didn't want to come over, so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out once the first one comes back online. So we'll have to see. And Warzone 2 does have their battle pass, obviously, and store up right now, so you can get your skins and whatnot in there. So we'll have to see. All right, my next game that actually came out this past Friday has been Pokemon Violet and Scarlet came out, and I bought Violet. And been playing that pretty much. I was just looking actually on my Nintendo app there, and I have about 6 hours ish. I mean, there's some times where I put it down and had to walk away and stuff. So it's still, even though it's on, it's still counting, obviously. But
so I do want to ask you one question here at the outset, because you did this last time with Pokemon also, where there were two different versions and you picked one. What is your algorithm, right, for picking which one of the two colors you're going to go with? Is it just random, or is there some content right behind each different version that like makes one more so your preference?
So there are slight differences, at least in this one, as far as like some of the actual in-game content. Now, there's always been like Pokemon that you can only get, either one, which is fine because usually I can find somebody to trade with or whatever. Like my nephew usually ends up getting one or the other, or sometimes even both. I think he said he got both this time. Or I could just find somebody obviously on another server. And actually on this one, there is a multiplayer aspect of it that you can actually find the other games Pokemon
This is in-world multiplayer, right? Like kind of co-op.
Yeah. So I can always do it that way too. But just in general, I just go with whichever legendary looks best to me, because that's pretty much all it is. Otherwise I really wouldn't care. Like I picked Shield on the last one, just because I thought aesthetically it looked better than that wolf or whatever the creatures are with like a sword hanging out of its mouth. Look kind of weird to me. And then this one, the one Pokemon, and it looks like a motorcycle basically. And this one is just the other one I picked is just like kind of like a hovercraft basically, or almost. It just has like jets in the back of it that kind of propels it. So it's I just thought it just looked a little bit better than like a motorcycle Pokemon, which was kind of weird, even though it's like an actual animal, but it has wheels in it. So that's just my reasoning behind it. But yeah, so I've been playing that. Like I said, I think I have about 6-ish hours into it, and I just got like to the first kind of like big town or like city center where you start off at, without giving anything away. I was just kind of rolling around the countrysides, and that's what I usually do. I'll just like power up all the kind of like the first what do you carry? I think like 6 or 7 Pokemon. So I just kind of power those guys up, get them, at least up to level 10 or so. And then I'll just start kind of switching around after that. But I always kind of like to power those guys up, because then by the time you get to like where not necessarily the gym leaders or trainers, but just like the people you meet on the road, which in this one, you actually can just walk by people. You don't have like, if they see you, they're not going to like battle you, like automatically like they used to in like every other game. So you actually can go up to them and just hit A, and you talk to them, and then, the battle begins. But this one, you can just walk past them. But I wanted to like power those, because usually there's Pokemon a little stronger than just a wild one that you see in the area, the world. So I just want to power my guys up and do that. So, and I haven't done any of the multiplayer stuff yet. I want to try that out at some point, just to see how that works. And so for that, I don't believe you can go through the story as far as I can tell. It's more of you can just run around the world as it is. And I think anywhere, I guess you can go anywhere once you have like the whole world open. I'm only in like one little section right now. But as far as I can tell, you can just go around. You can catch Pokemon. There's like raid battles, kind of like there was in Sword and Shield. Do that too, and then it's kind of weird because when I was reading about this, so you can trade, but I guess you can't trade when you're in that like multiplayer session, which is kind of weird. Like I don't know why you just wouldn't be able to do that, but I guess the trades are kind of just separate. You know, I think there's like in Sword and Shield you can do like a blind trade where you say, hey, I'm going to send this Pokemon out, and then somebody sends one back to you, just anonymously. And then there's just regular ones where you can connect to a person and say, hey, I want to trade Pokemon. Okay, and then you figure it out, what you want to trade. So, but like I said, that's like separate from if you're in a hosted multiplayer section. So I don't know why they did that, but that's just kind of weird. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much. I haven't got through the kind of story missions. I know there's like 3 separate branching stories you can do. I think I'm about to get to that part. I'm kind of going through the first section, about to talk to a bunch of people, so I'm sure that's going to kind of open up. And they do give you like that legendary kind of off the bat, but I haven't been able to use it as vehicle mode yet. So I'm kind of just footing it everywhere. And then like the section I was exploring is fairly large. I was like, you know what? Instead of walking everywhere, and you can't run, it kind of takes a little bit long. So I'm going to start going through the story a little. Hopefully, I can at least get the hovercraft section of my Pokemon up to date, and I can like ride them around. Hopefully, it's a little bit faster than just walking everywhere. So I'll get that going. But other than that's pretty much it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the casual Pokemon fan question here.
All right.
You buy all of them.
Pretty much.
What feels different? Does it feel different enough? Like, I bounced off Sword and Shield pretty quickly. I enjoyed Arceus from what I played, but that had a different kind of feel of kind of creeping around and catching them in the wild as they're out there and trying to fill up a Pokedex and side quests and things like that. Does this feel closer to Arceus in terms of the exploration and combat, or does it feel like a evolution of Sword and Shield?
I would say it's an evolution of Sword and Shield, because you can't capture Pokemon anymore. Like if you sneak up on them, you can't do that. You can still like throw a Pokemon, throw a Pokeball at them and kind of like stun them, or not really stun them, but like when you get the first attack, basically, like each time.
Then you're going into battle. Okay, but there's not you're not just kind of rounding them up in like an Arceus kind of way. Okay,
right, correct. Yeah, you can't do that anymore, which is kind of unfortunate. I kind of like that aspect of it, but I mean, in a lot of ways, and a lot of people said this too, it kind of seemed like that Arceus game was like kind of a proof of concept of what they were maybe trying to do with this game and maybe future games. But I definitely think there is a difference, more difference in this game than just saying, oh, it's 1 point, Sword and Shield 1.5 or something like that. So
how's does Arceus had a lot of pop in? It had a limited draw distance because it was trying to do a whole lot. Are you noticing any kind of technical limitations on the Switch?
I'm definitely seeing some. I just noticed this now. I'm in this big city hub area because there's basically just a Pokemon like wandering the world from before this, and they moved pretty freely, and I didn't see any like stuttering and anything. But now when I got into the city area or town area, I could see the people are like, they're just going like 8-bit, like kind of just like kind of like jerking movement until you get close to them, and then they kind of just walk normal. So I haven't seen that. I know I haven't really seen any other issues though. Like I know there's been a lot of performance issues that people have said that they've seen, but I haven't seen that part of it yet. And I just got to this place, so maybe as I'm walking around, I might see other issues. But I haven't seen like any clipping or like drawing or anything like that so far. But most of that first area is kind of like it's either like flat or it's a little bit hilly, but it's not like too much going on in that area. So.
And are you playing in classic E2KG question? Are you playing in handheld or docked mode? Because I am playing. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, just because I am wondering if performance issues are being seen in one mode or the other.
That's a good question. I don't remember if there was a difference or not, depending on if it was handheld or docked. But no, I'm of course I'm playing in handheld because that's what I usually play in. So I haven't docked it yet to play this game. So I have to check it out, especially now that I'm in that big town. And this is one of the, like the bigger city areas that I'm in now. I think there's like 3 different ones maybe, but this is like the largest one. So it'd be interesting to see if I dock it, if it runs any better or not. But I'm going to assume it not, because really, I mean, docking it really doesn't do much, right? It's not like it's a performance boost or anything. So I'm going to assume it's probably going to run the same, I guess. But let's see.
Yeah, no, I would assume it would run worse in dock mode, because in dock mode it goes to 1080p, but it sometimes will be at a lower resolution in handheld.
So. Yeah, consistently that's usually it's chugging a little more in dock mode because it's trying to push out 1080p.
Yeah, I'll have to look up too to see if there was a difference. If the performance issues were seen, more in handheld or in dock mode, so it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, so far I'm having fun with it. I definitely want to try out the multiplayer section of it and just kind of roll around the world and catch Pokemon and stuff like that with other people and do the raids. I haven't even got to the section where you can do raids, so I don't know. I don't know if that part of it is just like the wilds, like it was in Sword and Shield. If it's just like one section, or if you can do it like. You'll just see all of a sudden, like maybe on the map, like, hey, there's a raid over here and you have to run to it or something like that. Like on most games like that, where kind of reminds me of like Destiny, when there's like a public event, where it popped up and then you had to run to it. But I don't know if that's how it works or not yet, so we'll have to see. All right. If there's no other questions, Hamp, looks like you have a collection yourself that you were playing here on I think the Steam Deck, I believe that is what the VSD is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. Valve Steam Deck. So earlier this year, I bought Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection for the PlayStation 5. I think before the 6 months that I got rid of my consoles. And I definitely wanted to play Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection on PC. I was a little disappointed earlier this year when they decided to do a staggered release. I assume that was because they ran into technical issues or problems doing hardware optimization or something of that nature. But because God of War 2018 is absolutely, one of the best looking games I've seen on PC, Death Stranding, both the regular and the director's cut, is absolutely like probably the best game I've seen on PC in the last year or two. I definitely wanted to check out Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. I have not had a chance to check it out on a high-end PC, but I did want to play it on the Valve Steam Deck. And so I've played it in both docked mode and handheld. And in handheld mode especially, like the wonderful fluidity of the Uncharted series pairs perfectly. I mean, like a fine wine and cheese with the Valve Steam Deck. The analog controls on the Valve Steam Deck offer a lot more resistance than, say, the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. Which that's just how I prefer to play games. When I'm on my Elite controller or my Thrustmaster eSwap X, I have the resistance maxed out on the thumbsticks, but it just provides an incredible degree of accuracy, particularly in Uncharted, where I've often felt on the PlayStation the shooting was a little too wild and wonky, without you calibrating the dead space and drift and whatnot on the controllers, but it's pretty amazing. I did encounter one performance issue this afternoon while I was playing with it in handheld mode. It just got to a point where it just dragged to the point of being unplayable. I don't think that was a performance issue with the game, because when I rebooted my system, it immediately picked back up and I had no problems. I assume that was so I was down at about 14% battery power. It may have hit a 15% threshold, and maybe it was trying to throttle performance or something of that nature. But when I reloaded, it brought me right back to that same scene that I'd just been having problems with, a minute or two before, and it played perfectly fluidly with fine, no problem. And because of the checkpoint saves in Uncharted, I didn't lose any progress. And in docked mode, it played fine as well. I was playing it in docked mode with my newest Xbox Series Design Labs controller, and it worked just fine then. Uncharted is what Uncharted always has been, and there's probably going to be a couple points tonight where I talk about some ongoing discussion points out in social media about kind of the design of SIE games, which is kind of funny that lots of other people are hitting this point where I've been bringing these points up for the last several years. But the difference is I've always brought those points up and said, this is why I don't look at the SIE template as this, be all end all, as if that's the only thing that matters and that's the only way to do games well. But a lot of people now are weaponizing the negative sentiment against it as a reason why these games are bad. I'm like, no, let's, a little levity in all discussions. But, and case to point in Uncharted specifically, there are stretches in Uncharted 4, and of course it's the Legacy of Thieves collection, but I'm actually playing Uncharted 4, A Thief's End right now. There are stretches of like 10 minutes of cinematics, where you will go from like ending an action scene and you'll get a cinematic, and then you'll get a cut, and then it'll be another cinematic, and then that'll be a discussion with the character, and then you'll get another cut and another cinematic. And I'm like, I haven't had my hands on the controllers for like 10 minutes, But the gameplay is pretty exquisite, when you are in it. And this is just a matter of where, the Naughty Dog approach, the Sony Santa Monica approach is, probably, and I didn't play Days Gone, but I would suspect that, a lot of it is similar with the Bend approach, that there is this emphasis on cinematic quality and narrative at times above and beyond gameplay, and at least from a time perspective, I feel like the gameplay in those games is great. I just feel like sometimes the pacing, the cinematic sequences are so long and drawn out that it brings those things into question, and you get a lot of that in Uncharted 4. But I've played a little bit of each of the Uncharted games. I mean, I think what I posted on Twitter was like, it's just wonderful getting back together with these characters, seeing Sully again. I can't even remember Nathan's. Do you remember, DBQ, do you remember Nathan's wife's name?
Is it Elena?
Yeah, I think Elena. And, and seeing her again, and the voice acting and the character models are the best they've ever been. And the game nails traversal in ways that are very much akin to Assassin's Creed, but Assassin's Creed has also hit those versions where, they've had problems with traversal, or traversal has been overly gimmicky and has actually caused problems where, like in Assassin's Creed, the character will just start mantling and vertically scaling surfaces when that wasn't your intent, just because you like barely brushed up against the vertical surface, and you tend to not have those problems with Uncharted. So I'm having a great time playing it. It's absolutely, one of my favorite franchises in terms of gameplay. So, it's nice to be able to experience it on PC now. And, once I drop this on a high-end PC, I'll be having tons of fun with it there as well.
And you own it on PlayStation 5 as well, right? You have the upgraded. Yep.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, haven't gone back and played it since I reacquired my PlayStation 5. But yeah.
So I don't know if I forgot or maybe I missed it when I was out, but you got the official doc for the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I do. So I first had the JSOW dock, which I have since I've taken that down and put it in a basket just because with a lot of the USB-C connections and a lot of the docks that people have, I've just seen lots of people indicating problems with them, like their Steam Deck no longer charging over that USB-C port, and it's been very hard from the Reddit threads to tell if that's people saying that. I've heard some people have used the term bricked, as if the port they've stopped being able to charge over that port and it's never recovered. But I've also seen people, who the port temporarily stops charging and then eventually they're able to start charging it again. So I was like, even when I was using it, the way I would use it is I would hook it up and I would use it in the dock, and then when I got done using it, I would disconnect the USB-C connection to that JSOW dock. But yeah, in the Steam Deck dock, I'm leaving it connected. I had a lot of problems. I can't remember if I talked about this last week. I had a lot of problems when I first connected it in terms of typically when you get it, you're going to need to get a firmware update. And there's a lot of herky-jerky wonkiness of, people say you need to unplug it and discharge the dock, and then supposedly if it's not plugged in, if the dock isn't plugged in, it takes power from the Steam Deck. All of this just resulted in me having to do a big voodoo dance of unplugging and replugging and yada, yada, yada to theoretically get the firmware update. And to be quite honest, at the end of the day, I don't know that I got the firmware update because I never saw any kind of confirmation that the firmware update had come through. The main reason I was trying to get the firmware update is because when I initially hooked it up, I had it connected to a 2560 by 1080p ultra widescreen monitor. When I initially hooked it up, it was not sending a picture to the display. And so I wouldn't have normally cared about the firmware update right off the bat, but I was trying to get the external display to work. Eventually the external display just started working, and it's still true that I've since moved it and connected a different display to it, and it is still true that it seems like the first time you're hooking it up to a display, I've had to unplug the HDMI connector and plug it back in, and then it recognizes it and uses it normally, even after restarting it or taking it out of standby or anything like that. So I don't know if that was the firmware update or not, but it seems to be working with all external peripherals connected now.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna actually have you stay on the mic as we head into the news, and it looks like you got the first story on some potential Bayonetta sequel news.
Yeah, and Tal, when you're keying your mic up, we're getting a lot of static that's coming over now.
Okay.
But so this story over on Xfire by Ray Ampolacchio. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hideki Kamiya just casually confirmed Bayonetta 4. I will try to not. There are some spoilers in here if you've not played through Bayonetta 3 to the end, so I will keep away from those. But if you get through the ending, there are a lot of reveals of what's been going on over the last 3 Bayonettas, such that it made it unclear whether or not there was going to be a Bayonetta 4. And as with any game, you just never know that they're going to do another one. We've gotten God of War and God of War Ragnarok, and Sony Santa Monica has said there's just going to be 2 in that storyline and that they're done. So, there was absolutely no guarantee that you were going to get Bayonetta 4. However, I gotta take this out of reader mode because I think I can't see his quote. But Kamiya says, I quote, "I thought it was nothing unexpected, but the last part of Bayonetta 3 doesn't seem to have been conveyed to anyone correctly. So I think Bayonetta 4 will be unexpected for everyone. I'm sure that when Bayonetta 4 comes out, there will be that thing that says, you added that after the game, didn't you? I'll say this now, because I'm sure that when Bayonetta 4 comes out, there will be a lot of, you added that after the fact, didn't you? And so basically what he's saying is, look, I expect when we do Bayonetta 4 that people are going to say, I retconned it, or I made something, a mulligan up to, explain it. If you kind of think of Days of Future Past, the X-Men movie, there was a lot of, I want to say, contrivances that all worked, right? But a lot of things that were made up to explain away the discontinuities of the past. And so Kamiya was trying to head that off. But the key thing out of it is that he basically said, look, we're going to do a Bayonetta 4, right? And so let me quell some of the conspiracy theories now. So for those of you who have finished Bayonetta 3 and are looking forward to a Bayonetta 4, it will be done, is apparently the case. Maybe it's already been greenlit. Maybe they've already started pre-production on it. I'm not sure. Maybe they've already started script writing. But according to Hideki, they are definitely going to do that.
Yeah, I gotta play that. I gotta finish the first 2 still. I started the first one when I bought it on the Switch. I got that 2-pack, but I still gotta finish those games. They were fun. I mean, I really enjoyed the. I was never into that style of game too. Earlier back in the day, like Devil May Cry and stuff like that. But I actually did enjoy Bayonetta, and maybe just that style a little bit more now, just because that fast action. I suppose, I don't know. if you want to stay on the mic still, because you got the next story on a Sonic creator.
Yeah, so this story over on Polygon by Ollie Welsh. Sonic creator Yuji Naka arrested for insider trading. Yuji Naka, the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog and former head of developer Sonic Team, has been arrested for insider trading in Tokyo. The news, first reported by Japanese news site FNN, has been corroborated by the Asahi Shimbun newspaper in an English language report. So, and he is also the person who was responsible for Ballad Wonder World, correct?
Yeah, that's why he's been listed as working at Square Enix, at least most recently. That's where he was.
So that game, of course, carrying the infamous mantle currently as maybe arguably the worst video game ever made. Maybe not the worst, but certainly maybe one of the worst that's popular and known by a lot of people. And so, yeah, I mean, there's not too much to report here other than that he supposedly bought about 10,000 shares or 2.8 million yen, based on advanced knowledge of video games that were coming out, specifically for Dragon Quest Tact, and obviously using insider information that you have to profit from the early buying of stocks or sale of stocks is discouraged and is a no-no, and in lots of places is illegal. Other employees or others in his circle are said to have bought 47 million yen or $336,000 worth of aiming stock. I guess that's another maybe developer or whatever.
That's the mobile company that was doing the Dragon Quest Tactics game.
Gotcha. So it's unfortunate. Sometimes people say never meet your heroes. So do you know whether or not he was working on Sonic Frontiers, the new game that's out, or is that a completely separate?
Yeah, I do not believe he's involved with that. He left Square Enix back in 2021. So I'm not sure what he's working on right now. Again, this is, it'll be interesting. I don't know Japanese law enough to know like what's the standard to count as insider trading. Do you have to sell the stock? Do you have to have purchased it within a certain window of time, or is purchasing it by itself insider trading if you are holding on to the shares? Yeah, I think at this point it's a developing story.
Yep, and the one soundbite from Square Enix is that they've been fully cooperating with the investigation. Essentially, their stance is that's not us, that's an individual, but we will certainly cooperate with the investigation by the authorities.
Okay, so speaking of one of the worst games ever made, we're going from Balan Wonderworld, not to Superman 64, but I'm going to kick it over to Tao for his next news story. But it was just such a nice little segue.
Yes, this is not Nintendo's Superman 64, but so I got this article from Eurogamer.net, and the reporter was Matt Wales. So there was a free Unreal or Superman Unreal Engine 5 demo that was sent out there by let me get this guy's name, Tyson Butler Bashma, and he is from Toy Box Games, and he's put this demo out originally on itch.io. It was using there was that Epic Games the Matrix Awakens kind of sandbox cityscape that you can I think all you could do is like walk through it and just look at everything. I don't think you could actually do anything in that game, but he made a demo of it basically of Superman, and when you're looking at the pictures, like it's you don't see like the S or the costume slightly different and stuff, but I mean it's Superman for all intents and purposes. He had put that out for free. Yeah, and it was just letting people play with it and fly around the city, and I think that's basically all you can do in his demo. But I think starting in November he did that. I don't know if it says when he put that out, but in November he noticed that up on Steam there was a very similar, and it turns out to be it was his demo being sold for $10 or $11, so $10.99 US dollars. And so he actually was trying to, he got on there, was trying to say, hey, this is my game, and this was from Hero Game Studios, was the people on Steam that released it on there for $11. He was trying to get, saying, hey, this is my game or my demo that I put out there, and of course, the company or the developers were like, no, this is us, this guy was a former employee, he's just disgruntled now that we're making money off of it. But after about 2 weeks of kind of going back and forth, and he actually ended up by actually buying the game on Steam himself, so he can leave. He left a review, but basically just telling like his story on, this was his demo, and he put this out there, and I think he did that on YouTube also. And then that same company was like, hey, no, this guy is trying to. I think they put up like some kind of copyright infringement, or trying to block him too on there, to saying he's a liar. But it actually, I guess he had a bunch of evidence from different YouTube videos that just obviously when he released it, showing that hey, this was like way back whatever the time period was, this was my demo that I put out there. But like I said, after about 2 weeks, finally they did take it down from Steam. They didn't really say if they're like pursuing any kind of like legal action, but I mean, at least it's off of Steam for right now. At least not according to this article. They haven't said anything about that. But I was just interesting that like, hey, this is it was just a demo this guy did, and he put it out there for whatever people can do it. These other, I don't know if it was a group or if it's just one person, they just threw it up on Steam trying to make money off of it. So it was just interesting, like, and I saw like a lot of comments about it's like, oh, why did it take so long? And, why did they just yank it right away? But I mean, I guess there's like a whole review process, I assume, that they have to go through. And I guess that was another point of that people were making too, was like, well, how did this even, why wasn't this vetted a little bit more when it did get put on Steam? So, I mean, like I said, I don't know how that whole process works as far as, how games get reviewed once it is put up on there. But I think I don't want to say this has happened a lot, but stuff like that where it kind of slips through the cracks and actually gets on Steam when probably it shouldn't have been up there in the first place, whether regardless of the content. But it's just, I guess that's been brought up to question also. So it was just an interesting story, and I don't know. I guess it was kind of nice, at least they did finally take it down. But I don't know, what are your guys' thoughts on it, and if there is some kind of issue in Steam, or just why it took so long, from what people think it takes so long, but I'm sure there's another whole process they have to go through, and for that kind of stuff before it gets pulled out of there.
I would just think, I mean, in order to take it down, they have to, they've got to hit the right check marks, and it becomes a difficult thing to prove in a quick, without really getting into code and looking at, I would think, like doing it all remotely. This is not all within one company, that trying to prove the he said, she said aspect of it is, ends up being a little more deep dive. And the challenge, I would think, in Steam's case, is if they jump at it too fast, it also has the potential to make copycat issues of shutting down other things. But we also know that there have been other things on Steam. There was a game that was totally ripped Unity assets from another game that was up a couple of years ago. I remember talking about it here on the news. I mean, this is, by the nature of the Steam marketplace, it is very possible for things to sneak through. It becomes the challenge then, it's the onus on the original creator, which is, at some point, that does make it harder for an individual dev to jump through those correct hoops.
Yeah, I mean, you would think if he would have had that evidence, obviously from that other website, itch.io, that would have been enough, I guess. But I mean, I don't, like I said, like, who knows, like, what their review processes and stuff is. So I guess they gotta, like you said though, like, if they just like, oh yeah, he did do that, and then they just jump on it, and maybe they're lying or whatever too, obviously. But Hamp, any comments on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the problem, kind of endemic to the Steam store, right? Is that I don't think that the review process is very stringent. I think it's mostly a compliance check, and that's mainly to make sure that there's no like malicious code in your game, to make sure that you have the right graphical assets uploaded for thumbnails and things of that nature. But if you look at the last few years on Steam, and you look at most of the reports of things that have happened on Steam, they're all retroactive, right? We don't hear a ton about like a game that gets prevented from being posted to Steam. What we hear about is Game X got posted to Steam and then it was taken down. And I think that's because, and I've commented right over the last several years, as the policies were changed on the Steam storefront, about how now that storefront is just a big junk pile and I don't even bother using it. And that was a change that happened at some point after Swiss joined the show. So, I mean, at some point there was a policy change that basically made it a free-for-all and made it easy for anyone to post their game on Steam. And I think this is kind of the results of, right, such a laissez-faire policy.
All right. Yep. So we'll see how that keeps going in the future, I guess. Hemp, actually, you got the next story also. So if you want to stay on the mic, we got a release date for the Witcher 3's next-gen update.
Yep, so this story over on TechRaptor. The Witcher 3 Next Gen Update release date revealed. We finally have a date for the upcoming The Witcher 3 Next Gen Update. It'll be free for everyone who already owns the game and will introduce a host of new features to Geralt's journey on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, including ray tracing, faster load times, and more. I have not dug into whether or not... So I guess if you're still playing on Xbox One or PS4, you get none of this. But you do get it on PC. I own it on PC. I think I have it both from the good old game store, and I have a Steam copy. The date for that is now December 14th. So, this thing has been a thing that's been in the gristmill, rumored to, supposedly coming out, since, almost the start of the generation. It was going to come out in 2020, I think, originally, and then it got pushed back to 2021, and then again to 2022. I think we knew already that it was coming out in December, but now they have finally nailed that date down as December 14th. And so a week and a half prior to the Christmas holiday, you will be able to delve some more into The Witcher 3. Does anybody know when Season 3 of The Witcher is dropping? Is this at all concurrent with that? Or... Nobody, we don't know.
No, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think until next year. Cause I thought the second season came out already this year, didn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. I haven't really watched that series. So it's just that so many times now the show comes on a few months before release of a game, or a game comes out to create hype for the show. So I was just wondering if that was concurrent, but. Yeah, it'll be cool. For a lot of people, this is still like like I see lots of conversations that, favorite RPG of all time for most people seems to either be The Witcher 3, Mass Effect, or what's the other one? Or Skyrim. It seems to frequently be what the argument is. A few people are flipping that over to Cyberpunk, who have had good experiences with that, but for many people it seems to come down to those three, and really often comes down to The Witcher 3 or Skyrim. So it's nice to see the faithful followers of this IP, and I know a lot of people they like The Witcher 3 came out, and that's kind of almost all that they've played until Cyberpunk came out, because they've just played all of the mods. So this will be neat for them.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. When it was announced, I own it on both Xbox and PlayStation, so I'll be very interested to see what it ends up running like on both the Series X and PlayStation 5.
Again, they do mention in the article that the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch will get some improvements. Also, access to the Netflix DLC, which I didn't know there was. Netflix DLC. So I'm not sure what that is. So they'll at least get that. So if not the the huge graphical improvements.
I think the Netflix DLC is just skins that make them look like their Netflix counterparts. So it's not really new content to play through, but it's new content to look at, I guess.
Okay.
And obviously those older consoles and the Switch aren't going to get ray tracing because they don't have that capability. But yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately. All right, DB. You got.
All right, I'm going to make this one quick so we can get back to some games. There was a Embracer Group earnings call, or at least investor call, and in that they talked about that Volition's Saints Row reboot from August did not meet full expectations, is the quote, right? And which is not a surprise to anyone. But I think the thing that sticks out to me is that they are merging Embracer is going to merge Volition with Gearbox. So they will become part of Gearbox Studios. This is, we've talked about in the Embracer Group continuing to add studios. They picked up, Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal. A few weeks ago or a month ago, they closed the mobile Eidos Montreal studio, not the one that had been working on Deus Ex or the Guardians of the Galaxy, the one that had done Hitman Go. And so now this is the first time that we see them kind of merging kind of higher profile studios. And it seems very logical. To me, I think that this feels like this is the start of something more coming from the Embracer Group as they wrestle with the sheer quantity of studios that they have and the logistics of keeping all of that together, and even just HR, organizational management wise, of keeping all those studios together and running separate things. So whether or not that would have been the case if Saints Row took off and gave Volition a second life, but unfortunately, that's not the case. It'll be interesting to see how much of Volition sticks around for this transition, what that means in terms of if they're supporting other Gearbox properties, if their sense of humor fits nicely in with the Borderlands piece, or, so it seems like it could work out fine, but to me, it seems more like the kind of canary in the coal mine aspect of what Embracer is looking to do.
Yeah, I thought I must have been thinking of somebody else, but I thought if Volition had actually been not merged with somebody else, but just like I thought their name had changed for some reason, but I guess not.
So this is what I was going to bring up. So there's some incredibly interesting historic synergy between the studio. So Volition and DBQ, you can jump in and correct me if I mess this up. So Volition has been so they've been part of several people, but most interestingly, they were part of the original THQ from 2000 to 2013, and in fact, while they were part of that organization, obviously THQ published Homeworld. Homeworld is now owned by Gearbox Software. Gearbox recently was acquired by the new THQ. And now they are merging Volition, which used to be part of the old THQ, with Gearbox, who also happens to own the Homeworld IP, like the original THQ used to. So it's and that Homeworld IP doesn't have anything specifically to do with Gearbox or Volition in their relationship, but it's an interesting 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of situation of how they're all getting together.
Yep, your acquisition and sales of company flowchart checks out.
Yeah, I mean, you had brought up a good thing, something I was going to kind of comment on, but I wonder if this was like their last chance to keep themselves alive with this reboot of Saints Row. Excuse me. And I mean, I guess you can kind of figure this would probably happen eventually, just because obviously when companies, they start buying, other companies like this, they're eventually going to have to merge or do something, because you can't just have like a million little. I guess you could, but I mean, it kind of makes more sense to merge them. So, all right, so we'll see what happens in the future with Volition and Gearbox. But for now, let's jump into our other games real quick. I just been playing Marvel Snap. on Android. Once again, it's a mobile game.
Oh, sorry. Wait, can you hold on? I'm in round 6. I just need to play my Apocalypse card here. Give me a minute before. Oh, were you talking about Marvel Snap? I'm sorry.
I was, a matter of fact. And actually, I was playing it right before I started the podcast tonight. So, but yeah, still pretty much all I've been playing. Actually, that's pretty much all I was playing. I played a little bit of No Man's Sky again this week, but pretty much all Marvel Snap until Warzone and Pokemon had come out. But
so 2 quick Marvel Snap questions.
Yeah.
Your season rank and your collection rank. The green number.
Oh, season rank is I think I'm in the 30s, I believe. I think mid 30s. I'll have to check it in a second. And then the collection rank, I just got the 531 for that one.
Nice. So you did hit pool 3 then with over 500. Yep.
Yeah, so I did hit that, and I'm on 45. Yeah, 45 as far as the I guess this that's not the season.
Yeah, no, it's the battle rank basically.
Battle rank, yeah. So I'm kind of stuck. I'm stuck again, like I was before. I was stuck on 37 before. Now I'm stuck on 45. Like I keep hitting. I'll get to like mid, a little bit high, 45, and then I'll just dump back down to like 42, 43, and kind of just go back and forth now. So I think this time though is because of that. They have that one area like of the that kind of pops up more than. More often. I think that's once a week. I guess they changed that. I think
it's been a couple different times, but they rotated around. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is Death's Domain or something like that, where you put a card down and it just gets destroyed right away. I wasn't thinking like I have a deck like that I can use. I just wasn't using it. So I've actually switched over to that now. So hopefully now I'll hopefully start to jump back up and kind of level up a little bit more on that battle rank. Because I just lost like 4 or 5 in a row, and then I once I switched to that one, I did win one right away. The guy just left midway through the game, so I was like, okay, he probably could have won actually, to be honest with you, because I didn't really have anything. But I've had that happen a lot actually this past week, where people just dump out early, and maybe they just had to leave or something. I don't know, but it was kind of weird. But yeah, I'm still enjoying the game, still playing it. Played a little bit here and there on the PC last couple weeks since I wasn't on last week. Just like. I think I mentioned this actually before, like when we're playing Warzone, I'm just waiting for it takes so long to load into a game. I just, do a quick Marvel Snap. So, but other than that, yeah, I've been getting cards. And then now once I hit this 531, or actually a little bit before, instead of I still get the boosters, and you still get the, I forgot what the other currency is, that blue currency.
Credits.
But now instead of just getting a card, now it just says cash, I think, or something like that.
So those
like
could be boosters, they could be credits, they could be gold, it could just be meaningless. So yes, or it could be a card, but from what I've been reading on Reddit, I think there's like a 1 in 8, 1 in 9 chance of it being a card. So it starts, the further you go up the rank, that creeps up into the, I've still gotten a lot of cards, but as your deck gets fuller and fuller, that percentage seems to, it can stretch out quite a number of ranks before you get another card.
Okay. Yeah, it was kind of weird because I got I think I had unlocked 4 of those, or maybe 3 of those. And the 2 I got, I actually got a card, which I thought was kind of weird. I didn't, because I just hit it. So, and then the other one was a booster, I think. So that's pretty cool. What rank are you on collection, or what number?
We'll hit this quick because we could talk about Snap for too long. So, but I am just shy of 700 in terms of collection rank. My season rank is right around yours in the 30s. I'm in the low 40s. I've been stuck trying to win on all 3 locations to finish out the quest for the week.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Did you buy the battle pass for this week, or this next week?
Yeah. It's $10. It's a month. I've already put in, over the course of November, I've put in over 20 some hours. So yeah, I'm getting my money's worth out of it. Yeah.
Actually, I wasn't going to buy it. I did buy it, but kind of for free, because we have a reward system at work where, you get so many points, whatever, you can get gift cards. So I got an Android gift card, and I bought the battle pass that way. So I could buy the next 4 battle passes using that. So I'll probably just, if I get some kind of gift card like that, I'll just do it that way. But yeah, I'm still having a lot of fun with it, even though I get hit these walls every once in a while. But eventually, I'll get past it. So we'll see. I think I'm at silver now. I think, or maybe no. I think I'm in gold. I'm going to go into platinum. I think if I can get to level 50. So it'll be interesting if I can hit that this time around, because I didn't get that far last season. Although I was like, I think only a couple weeks. There's only a couple weeks left when I did that battle pass. So. There was something else I was going to ask you, but I can't remember right now. So we'll go on to Hamp's games. So go ahead. You got some PS5 and PC games.
So I want to interject before we get here, Hamp.
Yeah.
Why is God of War Ragnarok down here rather than at the top of the show? Because you're the only one that's played it, or is the better question, you're the only one that's purchased it and installed it and haven't necessarily played it enough to talk about it at the top of the show.
Wow, that's a remarkably heavily loaded question from multiple angles. Before we get to that, I would ask you guys. So have both of you guys played Diablo Immortal? I know DBQ has, but Tao, you did also?
I played a little. Yeah, I played a little bit of it.
So we've talked a lot about Marvel Snap, and that's not a complaint. That's a data point, right? Because I always find it interesting, right, when we have to look back and reflect about how much we talked about a thing, right? Whether that indicates kind of what we're playing and how we're playing. What is it about Marvel Snap that brought you, has ingrained you more so to the game than your experience with Diablo Immortal?
I'll say for me, it's the speed and the pace of the game, that it's relatively quick, that Diablo Immortal, ultimately, if I wasn't playing endgame stuff, is here in Snap, there's still there's a strategy element, especially if I'm using like a move deck, that there's you're planning a few moves ahead. There's more mental engagement, where Diablo Immortal, even though in the first week I put in enough hours to get all the way to level 50, right? Like I sunk a lot of time in, but it was really just, it was a time waster. There wasn't, it was satisfying, but it was hollow. Where here, it feels like there's a little something more to it. I also say this fully telling myself previous to the show or the course of this week, like there's going to come a time when the meta is going to outstrip my capacity to care for it. And part of it is potentially that I'm in early enough to hang with something, at least at this point, where by the time I was in Hearthstone, it was evolving faster than I could or wanted to keep up. So I think that that's a piece of it, is, that it's accessible, it's quick, it's strategic, but it's also early enough that I'm not getting blown over.
Yeah, for me, pretty much the same points. And I didn't play like a lot of Diablo Immortal. I don't think I even got to the point where, well, I'm assuming there's a point where you you don't have to buy like stuff, but it probably helps you if you did. I just played it for like a few hours. I was like, okay, I'd rather just play this on a console than on my phone, even though I do have like a controller that I can stick to it, and I'm assuming play it that way. I don't know if it has controller support or not, but I just assume it does. It does. But with Marvel Snap, once again, I think a lot of it's the Marvel IP, and just because I grew up with these characters, and like I said, this game has totally taken me by surprise, and I just didn't think I was going to like it, and I was like, oh, I'll just try it, and I just got into it. And I think the same reason for like DB says, it's so early that I got into it that I don't feel like I'm like totally getting blown away, and there is that matchmaking too, where it kind of keeps you within that level that you're at. So every once in a while, yeah, I'm going to get totally destroyed, but for the most part, I can kind of hang with with the people I'm playing against. And I think even at the higher levels, they still throw in bots sometimes that you go against. As far as from what I've read, it doesn't happen as often after you get after a certain level. I think after like level 30 or something, or 20 maybe even, it's that low. But I'm definitely playing like real people now, like almost every game. Like, you could tell because like, some of the strategies, like before, like I think I had mentioned when I was first playing it, like I felt like, like why would somebody even do like this move or that move? And it it just occurred to me at that point that there were bots in there. I learned that later on, so that's probably why it was just a bot. Like they were just throwing cards out. So, but you definitely do have to think about it, and it's just just super quick. I can play like 10 games and under a half hour or so. So it's just kind of nice to get through those kind of quick games, and that's probably pretty much it. And then I do remember the question for you now, DB. Have you leveled up a card all the way yet, like up to the infinite level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I was just wondering. So so if you don't split the card, does anything happen, or does that split always? Is it always there? Like if you decide not to do it?
Yeah, it's always there. You can come back to it. It's purely cosmetic at this point, or it gives you something else when you need to level up a card. It's another spot to do it. So,
okay. Because just the way they explained it, like I said, there's some kind of mod or something like on the one of the split cards. I wasn't really sure what that meant. Like, I don't know if that was just cosmetic thing, or if it was like, I'm assuming it doesn't do anything else to the card itself, like as far as like powers or stuff like that. So, okay.
No, not that I've seen it. Not that I've seen any significant anything.
Yeah, because the one I think I split the Sentinel, and it just make it it looked like a foil cover basically. So to my card, so looks cool. But so all right, Hamp, you want to jump into your games and go through DB's question if you remember it?
So to answer DB's question, the reason it's down here is because I don't have any questions about how I feel about Uncharted 4. A Thief's End. I don't know how I feel about God of War Ragnarok, or I have conflicted feelings about God of War Ragnarok. For 2022, and this is one of the things that these are kind of two slightly different games that play on the market, right? Uncharted 4 and God of War 2018, right? Both, two SIE games that came out this year. I think Death Stranding Director's Cut also came to PC this year. And tonight I'm going to get started with Miles Morales. So I have played more SIE games this year than is my past historic norm, probably. And I'm playing a chunk of them on PC. And then, of course, I've also been playing Gran Turismo 7. But those games that are older games that are coming to PC aren't really in contention for, such labels as Game of the Year and other things of that nature. So Uncharted 4, as I kind of mentioned earlier in the show, is incredibly fun, right? The traversal, even the story about it, it's a story that I relate more so to, having been a history major and having some minor interests in archaeology. The way that series obviously skates close to like the Indiana Jones concepts, being one of my favorite fictional IPs. I feel like that's more kind of grounded, right, in my consumption of kind of pop culture. God of War Ragnarok. There's absolutely no question in my mind that God of War Ragnarok is one of the two best games of 2022. The discussion will come down to it and Elden Ring. The question that becomes pertinent for me the more and more I choose through it is, and earlier in the week I would have absolutely said my expectation is out of the TGAs that God of War Ragnarok will win Game of the Year. But after playing more of it, the question that's foremost in my mind comes to which one of those two games moved the art form forward. And I don't know that God of War Ragnarok moves the art form of video games forward that much. There are some Red Dead Redemption 2 feelings that I have intermixed in my reception of the game. I'm spending a chunk of time moving trees and splitting trees in half, and that's not really a skill or an event that is beneficial to progression. You encounter, you have a big major encounter within the first couple hours of the game. One that's been touted and referred to ad nauseum in all of the marketing. That fight is not conducive to progression. As far as I know, I got to go back. I took footage of it last night. I got to go back and look, but I don't know that you even got XP out of that. And certainly not as much XP as you get out of just like a normal encounter, right, with roving bandits. And I'm like, so that fight has cinematic quality, it progresses the story, but as far as pure gameplay mechanic and the notion of working down the progression tree, I don't know that it does that much for you. And these are the same problems that I had with things in Red Dead Redemption 2, where I was like, you consume some of my time making me bang a wagon wheel back onto a stagecoach, and I don't know that's not a repeatable skill. It didn't benefit any part of my progression tree. It just sucked up time. And I'm like, I get it, right? The whole point, part of the point of that game is to ground you and immerse you in that kind of, that Western world building setting. And so I get that. But I didn't really get that until I came back into it like a year or two after the fact. The first time, right, it just bugged me, right? And so, again, Ragnarok is a great AAA summer blockbuster movie. And it's better than a Michael Bay or a Zack Snyder movie. It has all of their stylism and all of their bombasticness, but it also has a deep-rooted emotional story connected to it that, as we've talked on this show before about games like The Last of Us, things that appeal to you more so directly, because of our relationships with our children, that is more emotionally connecting than something like Uncharted. But when I'm playing Uncharted, I feel like I have more fun. Right? And that's kind of what it comes down to. There's going to be a lot of questions that come up with regards to Ragnarok. And again, this refers back to what I've been saying a lot about how, that big major fight that you have is, it is template the Loki fight from the first game. Right? With the exception of some additional kind of cinematic setup before the fight, but it is literally that same fight. And I didn't like that Loki fight the first time that I played it either, right? It was long. It overstayed its welcome. It went on, right, longer than I thought that it should. And there was a shtick to it, right? It wasn't a straight up fight. The fact of the matter is that it was on a timer or an event trigger, and you were just supposed to keep fighting until you hit that event trigger or timer. There was really no winning the fight, through any direct causality based on your gameplay. It was just sticking with the fight long enough until you hit the timer trigger, and then miraculously you would be contrived to win the fight, right? And that's I understand that as a cinematic device, but there's an argument that that's problematic. And one of my big detractors now, so all of that being said, all of those are things that I'm kind of struggling with to determine how I feel about them right now. Again, none of those make me feel like the game is not one of the top 2 games of the year. The one indictment that I do have is QuickTime events. And in 2022, that's about to get outlawed, right? I'm like, and so in the opening sequence of the game, you have an event very similar to the 2013 Tomb Raider, where you were sliding down a hill in like one of those opening sequences of the game, and I think this was Tomb Raider. It may have been one of the sequels, I'm not sure, but there's a point where the only thing you're doing with the joystick is you just have the providence to shift it left or right. You're not really in control of the character.
You're dodging, trying not to die,
right,
basically.
Right. And that is what that is one of the opening sequences of God of War Ragnarok. And again, it was a highly touted through marketing event that does not play as either it was marketed or we just kind of convinced ourselves to believe. You don't have as much providence of control. There's no consequence from you running into obstacles. And it's a big quick time. And then in between like the movement, it's a big quick time event. And I'm like, and again, it tells the story. I get that. I appreciate the story that it told. I get that. I felt something emotional as I was going through it. I get that. However, I can't take off the board the fact that in 2022, I don't know that you can get away with calling a quick time event innovative, challenging, interesting, immersive gameplay. So all of these things are like, it's a really great story told with some mechanics that are questionable in 2022. And they're not questionable because of Sony Santa Monica or because of PlayStation's losing its mojo or because SIE builds things on a template. It's really questionable because of kind of the same reason why we started questioning Ubisoft's approach. Because they figured out open world and put that model on lock, and they were the best at doing it. But at a certain point, we started asking questions about it. And when we asked those questions, it did not take away from the fact, despite the fact that there are a lot of people who want to nickel back Ubisoft games now, the fact of the matter is that Valhalla is a great game, Origins is a great game, Odyssey is a great game. But if you've been playing those games over and over and over again, then they start to lose a little bit of their shine. And that's what I feel like I'm experiencing in Ragnarok, and a lot of people are having more extreme reactions to it. I think those extreme reactions are unfounded, but they exist, and they exist because of the game. I also think they exist because of where the industry and the art is right now, where I've talked a little bit about, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I went on a rant about how the way consumers are demanding for AAA games right now is what's driving this mass consolidation of the market, of the industry that you see. And that's going to continue. And I think one of the knock-on effects of that, and one of the byproducts of that, is in years past, 4 years between a game, that then gave us more of what it gave us the last time, I don't think would have been a problem. I think where the industry is right now with these next generation consoles and the way people are being demanding, I think it is gonna be a problem when there's that much lag time between two sequels, and the second sequel and the second game, operates within the same kind of architectural and cinematic and narrative framework of the first one, not particularly adding anything new from a gameplay perspective.
Right, like you would be thinking at this point, there should be some gameplay evolutions, which I can also see, the push-pull of that, of this is a continuation of a story. It shouldn't narratively drastically shift the gameplay mechanics because you're doing the same type of thing. Except the downside is you're doing the same type of thing.
Yeah, and I think within the fabric of the God of War narrative, I really don't think it's a criticism against God of War. But when I have to take into context that I'm playing God of War alongside other games that are competing for my time, I think it's a discussion topic that comes up. That being said, and the other thing is, and I will say this as a criticism, I think for Sony Santa Monica, I think in a lot of the SIE studios, I think they are great at narrative. I think their plots and the through line that they take the characters through and the evolution of the character development are great, maybe arguably better than anyone else in the industry. There are times where their execution and delivery, I think, has to be questioned. I think currently there's an effort to kind of take a very MTV movie kind of approach to things where, for instance, MTV movies would take a period piece and they would overlay on top of it current, modern day jargon and kind of Urban Dictionary scripting, and then put modern music on top of it.
What? Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet? What are you talking about?
Right. And so there are points in God of War Ragnarok, and I understand maybe this was in God of War 2018. It just didn't hit me as apparently as it does now. And again, maybe this is the matter of like, it's been 4 years, right? Whereas maybe it didn't bother me then, but it bugs me now. There are scenes featuring Norse gods where if I closed my eyes and I didn't know what I was playing, if I just walked into a room and heard it, I would have sworn that I was hearing a scene from GTA 5. and I think and that may have worked in 2018, but right now it didn't land with me. It as I was watching it, I was like, this isn't working, and this I don't know that this should be that way. I think for some of the characters, it worked. I think for some of the other characters, it didn't. And then you have this kind of oscillating wave, right, of presentation where some scenes with some characters are like that. Some scenes with other characters are spoken kind of in this kind of voice that you would expect, right, for this kind of period piece. So I just think that those are nitpicky detractions, right? But they are detractions, right? At the end of the day, still, it's again, one of the top 2 games made this year. They are things that I say maybe arguably only because it's the ramp up to the discussion about those 2 games as the year closes. They may be things that I wouldn't necessarily bring up if I were comparing that game to another game, because it's everything else. The total package is so far above everything else, but I think as we skate into the future, right, they are going to become issues. The other things I've been playing, Gran Turismo 7, fun game, does the same things Gran Turismo always does, which is it puts a lot of baggage and a lot of boulders in the road that are kind of unnecessary and get in the way of the fun. I don't like having to go take a driver's license test to get to certain content of the game. And then when I compare that against like a Forza Horizon 5 doesn't put me through that, right? So great technical execution. The structure of the campaign is still kind of obtuse, and puts a lot of stuff in your windshield that's not necessary. And then we've been playing Bioshock Remastered on PC, which I've been playing that on a 3080 Ti, and it's been wonderful. Game still holds up and looks great with the remaster. This is one of the things, right? And again, this is why my God of War Ragnarok commentary is what it is. When I'm playing Bioshock on PC, which also has kind of a deeply woven story, I don't have these points of friction between the narrative and the scripting and the delivery, butting up against kind of my tastes and my absorption of the content, consumption of the content in the same way that Ragnarok just kind of rankles me a bit. But that all being said, one of the best weeks of gaming that I've ever had, with all those SIE games that I played, and looking very forward to starting Miles Morales tonight.
Nice. Did you have the original Spider-Man, or not the original Spider-Man, but did you have the Spider-Man on PC too, or no? You didn't end up getting that one.
I did not. So on PS5 I have the whole thing, right? Because I didn't buy Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. I waited. And then I went ahead and because, it had bundled pricing, I went ahead and bought the remastered version with Miles Morales. Interesting, I've seen commentary on the PC that says, given how close those 2 games came out together, I see a lot of people say, look, if you're gonna get a Spider-Man on PC, don't bother getting Spider-Man remastered, just get Miles Morales. And that's what I have right now. Not saying I won't swing back and get Spider-Man remastered, but I'm starting off with Miles.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to pick up. Maybe I'll wait for that bundle sale at some point. Hopefully they have maybe Black Friday or even past that sometime early next year. So I definitely want to play. Either of them would be nice because I haven't played a Spider-Man game in a while. Excuse me. All right, I think that will be it for tonight. DB did have one last game, but we'll wait until next time. So he'll give us a little update on Bravery and Greed for the PC. Anything else, gentlemen, for tonight? Any other comments or questions or anything? All right. So next week we will not have a show as it is the U.S.'s Thanksgiving. So we will be out. We will take a break and be back the following week for, I believe, one more regular show. And then we go into our end of the year shows, our superlatives and kind of news roundup shows to top off the year. So thank you, DB. Thank you, Hamp. I am TileMaster99. Make sure you play the games you want to play. Take care of each other. We will see you next time.